Bear down, fam. $40 million carted off, helmet slammed down. According to Adam Schefter, Kobe Bryant is out up to 10 weeks, and I'll break down the problem this exposes at Hallis Hall. Meanwhile, Colston Loveland talked year 2 goals, and it's got me thinking Chicago hasn't seen half of what he can do with Caleb Williams. And we're closing with Kyle Munningai, whose update flips the whole story in a way nobody saw coming. Let's get into it. Okay, let us go in order here because this story has layers, and I want you to understand the whole thing, not just the headline, how we got here. Ryan Poles walked into this offseason with one glaring problem. The Bears' secondary in 2025 was an availability disaster. Kyler Gordon, the slot corner who got a 3-year, $40 million extension just last year, ended up playing only 3 regular season games because of a string of soft tissue injuries: hamstring, groin, calf. 14 games missed. And at safety, the team did not have a trustworthy veteran pairing. So Poles did what a general manager does when he spots the biggest hole on the roster. He went to the market and brought in Kobe Bryant, a Super Bowl champion with the Seahawks, on a 3-year, $40 million deal to lead a completely rebuilt secondary next to first-round rookie Dylan Thieneman. And through the first weeks of camp, Bryant was doing exactly what was expected of him. He picked off a Caleb Williams pass last week. Teammates were already talking about him as a natural leader. He said it himself in a press conference a few days ago. That's why I'm here, to bring guys along. 9 words, and you could already tell the locker room was buying in. And then Monday happened, first fully padded practice of the season. Bryant was in a one-on-one drill covering Cole Kmet, landed awkwardly, grabbed his left knee, and slammed his helmet down in frustration before they carted him off. Reporters on the ground, including Adam Hoge, said the emotional part of his reaction was the more concerning piece, more than the cart itself. Since on those far fields at Hallis Hall, a cart ride is standard protocol for pretty much any injury. Now, the medical report. According to Adam Schefter, Bryant hyperextended the knee and suffered a bone bruise along with a small fracture. The good news, if you want to call it that, is he will not need surgery. The bad news is the timeline. 8 to 10 weeks out. Do the math with me. Take the optimistic number, 8 weeks, and Bryant is back somewhere around week 3 or 4 of the regular season. Take the 10-week number, and we are talking about potentially missing up to 6 games. And here is where I stop just reporting and start giving you my real opinion, because this is not an isolated event. It is a pattern this organization needs to start taking seriously. Kyler Gordon has now dealt with soft tissue injuries in back-to-back off seasons that keep knocking him out of practice before the season even starts. Elijah Hicks walked into this camp with shin soreness and is still on the physically unable to perform list. And now Bryant, the marquee free agent, breaks down in the very first practice with real contact. I could be wrong, but when you see 3 separate injuries hitting the same general area of the secondary in the same camp, that is not bad luck anymore. That is a sign that something in the conditioning, the workload, or the medical evaluation before these contracts get signed needs a second look. And let me be straight with you about why I have a hard time giving this secondary the benefit of the doubt. This burned me once already. Last year I wrote a whole script saying Gordon was set up for a full season of impact, and he played 3 games. So when I watch the same pattern show up again with a different player, my fan instinct will not just let me call it bad luck and move on. Maybe I am projecting a scar that does not belong here, but I would rather tell you that straight than pretend everything is fine. Let us talk about the immediate fallout. Cam Lewis, the defensive back who came in as a free agent from Buffalo, is going to take most of the first team reps next to Thieneman. Lewis is a 7-year veteran with experience at slot, outside corner, and safety, so this is not a total emergency, but he is not Kobe Bryant either. And here is the structural problem. The Bears were already leaning on Lewis as the fill-in plan for Kyler Gordon's absence in the slot. Now that same player has to cover 2 holes at once, and mathematically, that does not work. Somebody else has to step up, whether that is Elijah Hicks once he clears PUP, or rookie Dylan Thieneman having to shoulder more responsibility than anyone expected for his first year as a pro. Now let me get into the tactical piece, because this is not just one less name on the depth chart. It is a real change in how Dennis Allen can design his defense. The reason Chicago paid $40 million for Bryant was not just the interceptions in Seattle, it was versatility. A safety who can play deep, come down into the box, and cover the slot gives a coordinator the ability to disguise coverage before the snap, without the opposing quarterback knowing what is coming. Cam Lewis does have real multi-position experience, credit where it is due, but the chemistry built between 2 safeties who have spent months working together, reading the same keys, talking the same language before the snap, does not get replaced overnight. That is what actually gets lost over the next few weeks, not just individual production, synchronization. And I want to be fair to the other side of this, because it is not all catastrophe. Dylan Thieneman was drafted in the first round specifically because Poles and Johnson believed he could handle a big workload as a rookie, and now that plan gets accelerated sooner than anyone wanted. If the rookie handles this pressure well, this organization walks out of this rough patch with more valuable information about his long-term future at the position than a quiet camp would have ever given them. Not the scenario anybody wanted, but exactly the kind of trial by fire that separates good prospects from the ones who are actually ready. There is also a market question sitting underneath all of this, and I think it deserves its own moment instead of a quick mention. Names like Harrison Smith out of Minnesota, Justin Poyer, and Darnell Savage are technically out there on the open market right now. My honest read is that signing someone today, before the organization even knows exactly how bad Bryant's situation truly is, would be jumping the gun. But give this another week or two, and if there is still no real return timeline for either Bryant or Gordon, Chicago has to pick up the phone. A defense that finished as the number 2 seed in the conference last year cannot walk into September running its safety room on improvisation and hope. Compare this to what other conference contenders are dealing with right now. The Eagles are walking into this camp with their secondary basically intact from last year. The Lions, outside of normal free agency departures, are not dealing with this level of medical chaos either. That matters, fam, because the NFC is not going to wait around for Chicago to sort out its secondary. Every week Bryant and Gordon are out is a week where this defense's margin for error gets smaller. Ryan Poles said something a few weeks ago about the Gordon situation that now applies just as well to Bryant. Obviously, he's frustrated. We're frustrated. That line, spoken by the general manager about a completely different player, now describes exactly what the whole fan base is feeling this week. I needed that breather. And watch how this connects directly to what we just talked about. Because if there is one player who represents the exact opposite of the availability problem the secondary is dealing with, it is Colston Loveland. Let us remember where he came from. Loveland arrived in the 2025 draft at pick number 10, the first selection of the Ben Johnson era, and he started his rookie year recovering from shoulder surgery that cost him the entire offseason program the year before. That slowed his integration into the scheme. But once he found his rhythm, the second half of his rookie season was on another planet. He finished with 58 catches, 713 yards, and 6 touchdowns, leading the team in catches as a rookie. And the number that matters most to me, his Pro Football Focus impact score ranked him as the best rookie tight end in the entire class. Not just among tight ends drafted in 2025, among every rookie at the position across the whole league. Now, this week, Loveland talked about what he expects from himself in year 2 and what he said feels like exactly the right attitude at exactly the right time. He said he will accept whatever role the team needs, and he put it plainly. As long as we're winning and keeping the main thing. That does not sound like a player obsessed with personal stats. That sounds like someone who understands that in Ben Johnson's scheme, the role shifts week to week depending on what the opposing defense gives you. And Ben Johnson was just as direct when he talked about him. I love what he brings to the table. That line, coming from a coach who does not hand out praise for free, says more than any stat line could. Fam, let me be honest about why this excites me so much, and also about why I'm still holding a little bit of caution. Last year, I was one of the guys saying Loveland would need a whole year to adjust, that the shoulder surgery would hold him back, and I got that wrong in a big way. The second half of the season had me eating my words on this exact camera. So this time, I am trying not to repeat the mistake of underrating him, but I also do not want to swing the other way and crown him a made star before he has played a single regular season snap in 2026. A second-year tight end who already led every rookie in the league in impact, who got his first full offseason of training as a pro without the shadow of shoulder surgery hanging over him, playing in an offense where Caleb Williams already trusts him after a full regular season and a playoff run together, is exactly the kind of piece that separates good offenses from elite ones. And this connects directly to the Kyle Manangai conversation coming up, because both of these guys represent the same Ben Johnson philosophy. It is not about the name on the stat sheet, it is about who is healthy and ready to do the job that week. Let me raise the honest doubt I have, because I promised this channel would not just sell hype. The real question for Loveland in year 2 is not whether he can produce. We already know he can. The question is whether he can become the kind of tight end Caleb Williams throws to on 3rd and 4 with the game on the line in the 4th quarter of a playoff game. That jump from good system player to number 1 option under pressure, we have not seen yet in an elimination setting. There was a recent ranking from Tri-City Sports that placed him in the top 5 tight ends in the league, still slightly behind an established star out of Green Bay. Honestly, I think that gap closes this year if Loveland stays healthy. Think about the route tree for a second, because that is the real evolution to watch in August. In his rookie season, Loveland was effective mostly on short and intermediate routes, crossers, hooks, some slot work when Johnson lined him up as an extra receiver. What we did not see consistently yet was the vertical threat, the deep route through the middle of the field that forces a free safety to respect his speed before he can help against the run or the outside receivers. If Loveland adds that layer this year, and everything points that way since he finally had a full offseason to work on it, opposing coordinators get stuck with a real dilemma. Cover him with a slower linebacker and risk losing on speed, or assign him a safety and open up more room for Rome Odunze and for DeAndre Swift coming out of the backfield. That kind of dilemma, when you put it on a rival week after week, is what separates offenses that just pile up yards from ones that actually win close games. And here is something that might sound strange, but makes sense. Loveland's health in year one was shaped by shoulder surgery that stole his entire prior offseason of conditioning. That detail almost never gets mentioned when people celebrate his second half numbers. But to me, it is the single most important piece of the whole 2026 puzzle. A player with his talent level, walking into camp for the first time without recovering from surgery, playing in year two of the system, with Caleb Williams' trust already built, is basically a recipe for a season much bigger than his rookie year. I am not guaranteeing 1,000 yards. I am saying the conditions are there like never before. And to close things out, let us talk about Kyle Monangai, because the panic that set in when he missed 3 straight practices was understandable. This kid was last year's draft steal. Let us quickly remember his real story. 7th round pick, Rutgers, and he finished his rookie season with 783 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns, including a 26 carry, 176 yard game against the Bengals while DeAndre Swift was hurt. That game was the coming out party for a player nobody expected to matter as a rookie. So when he disappeared from practice without explanation last week, it was normal to worry. But Ben Johnson came out on Monday and gave context. Soft tissue injury, tied to the hamstring, and in his own words, we're taking it day by day. It should be on the shorter side. That language, coming from a coach who has been fairly transparent about injuries this offseason, puts me at ease. This is not the same diagnosis as Bryant. No fracture, no cart, no 8 to 10 weeks. This is camp caution with a player the organization clearly wants to protect before the games that actually count. One thing worth mentioning, and I say this with some doubt since we do not have a big enough sample yet, Salvon Ahmed has been taking most of the second team reps while Monangai is out. And that raises a fair question about depth behind Swift if this ever stretched out longer. But for now, with Monangai already back in pads according to reports from Brad Biggs, I do not see a reason to panic. Johnson's real goal was always to manage Swift's workload across 17 games using Monangai as the complement, and that plan is still intact. And honestly, this is where I want you to place this story inside the bigger picture of the day. Swift, coming off a season with more than 1,000 rushing yards, needs someone to take reps off his plate during a heavy stretch of the calendar, especially if this defense keeps rebuilding itself on the fly and games end up closer than expected. Monangai is not a luxury. He is a structural piece of Johnson's plan to keep his lead back fresh all season long. Losing even a couple weeks of August reps is not ideal, but compared to what the secondary is living through right now, this is, without exaggeration, the best kind of bad news you can get in August. That is everything I have got for you today, fam. And if you're asking how I feel after all of this, it is a strange mix, almost a contradiction. Genuinely worried about the secondary because we have lived this movie before and it did not end well, but genuinely excited, no faking it, about what is coming on offense. I am not going to wrap that contradiction up with a neat bow, because that would be lying to you. This season is going to depend less on who the best player is on paper and more on who is still standing in week 1. Bear down, drop that like, and tell me down below. Would you go out and sign a free agent safety right now, or do you wait to see how bad this really is before you make a move? See you in the next one.